Welcome to the PIO podcast. I am your host, Robert Tornabene. I have been a PIO for over 11 years with 27 years of law enforcement background. Welcome to season 2 of the PIO podcast. I am working hard to bring you the very most diverse crowd of subject matter experts in the public sector field. You can help grow the podcast by sharing it with friends and colleagues. Please give the podcast a positive review on whatever platform you listen to. So sit back and enjoy our next episode.
Welcome to the PIO podcast. This week, I've switched it up a bit. Since the guest I was scheduled to record had a conflict, and several others were scheduled for later this week and next week. I thought I would talk on a topic that I believe is important for law enforcement agencies in identifying what the community wants from their agency, in addition to identifying some important factors in how to go about doing this. Law enforcement leaders have talked about wanting a better understanding and to their department with their communities. In order to successfully do just that, the agency needs to understand the community, what the community thinks about the agency, and the community's perception of how the agency currently interacts with the community. Community surveys provide descriptive information that goes beyond the traditional measures of police workload, arrest activity, reported offenses, or calls for service. Community surveys at a citywide or countywide level can be designed to provide police with reliable feedback from citizens about perceptions of police performance. In addition, these surveys collect information about criminal victimization, residents' view on crime, and their willingness to report crime to the police. From the management perspective, these surveys collect information about the most effective approaches to dealing with crime. Since these surveys provide a measure of police performance that can be used to analyze the way police deliver services and possibly change the allocation of resources where needed. Some community surveys provide detailed information about specific problems affecting parts of the community, which helps in focusing police efforts. Now, let me express that I'm not advocating that the PIO should be the sole arbiter of the survey effort. This should obviously be taken on as a department-wide effort, taking into consideration all aspects of the department and the impact the department has on the community. Now, I'm not going to do a deep dive on this topic. I just wanted to point out that surveys can become incredibly complex because they grab onto many different topics. I will say that this has been made easier by the Bureau of Justice Statistics and the Office of Community-Oriented Policing, which created a guide which is titled Conducting Community Surveys as a Practical Guide for Law Enforcement Agencies. Now, why did I even bring up conducting a survey of your community and the public's perception of your agency? The survey becomes part of your broader strategic communications plan. I should note that surveys can be viewed as self-serving devices designed to make law enforcement look good. If there are concerns about police brutality or police attention to minority areas or police treatment of minorities or other sensitive issues, those can be brought into consideration. It is therefore really important to address any perceived bias by focusing attention on the research, the question wording, and the testing of the questionnaires to identify problems. That is why the guide and its related software is crucial in taking on this endeavor. Now, that's being said, let's move on to the value of having the data from a community survey to help you develop an agency-wide strategic communications plan. There are 5 elements to a strategic communication plan, and they are as follows. The first is your target audience, and this is where the survey will be crucial. A strategic communication plan is directed at specific audience or set of audiences, which within there is typically a primary audience and a secondary audience. These audiences likely have different experiences and expectations of your agency, and let's face it, not everyone will like law enforcement. They have different levels of knowledge on the subject at hand with different priorities and concerns. Finally, they may have degrees of trust in your agency and your organization, and as well as the individual officers. Next is context. Context is having clarified the audiences for your communication and define the context in which this communication will occur. The survey will help you identify the context and help you shape your message. Recognize key events and relationships, whether they're past, present, or future, that are significant to each of the audiences that you will address. This context defines your audience's world, recent experiences, and reasonable expectations for the future. Outcomes. Every outcome has a set of specific purposes to achieve, whether it's information transfer, instruction, persuasion, transformation, and in some combination of these as well. One technique for defining outcomes is to consider head, heart, and hands. That is, what do you need to know, believe, and do as a result of the communication? Remember a call to action. What is your call to action? Once you've defined your purpose, construct your messages that will resonate with your specific audience in the current context. One approach is to create a message pyramid with a headline message followed by several reasons why, supported by a series of proof points. This pyramid structure comes from the highest level summary statement of your message to the most specific pieces of evidence that your audience will consider relevant to their situation, concerns, and interests. The next factor is messenger. While you or the PIO is considered the primary messenger for most of your communications, you still must consider whether you will be the most effective messenger. The primary consideration in choosing a messenger is the ethos, the credibility of the messenger and the audience. And the factor that affects the ethos include status and power. Most audiences have confidence in people with big titles, your chief or sheriff, or a clear position of influence in the organization. Expertise, such as your traffic officers or your detectives. Other audiences prefer a message with a demonstrated knowledge and experience in their subject area. And their relationship, a strong prior relationship with the audience, and an enhanced messenger's credibility. So that could be your community policing officers as well, because they tend to be in the community talking to those members that you may be trying to reach. Lastly, measurement. For critical communications, you will also need to consider how you will measure your effectiveness. Have you achieved the outcomes, knowledge, beliefs, and actions that you defined as your strategic purpose? How do you document the various elements of this communication strategy? One approach is to complete a planning template which captures and displays its information on a single page. Once you complete the template, you'll have an opportunity to review, refine each component in your strategy before creating and delivering your communication. It should be noted that your final strategy document is less important than the process you go through to create it. Ellie Pitot once said, strategy is a fancy word for coming up with a long-term plan and putting it into action, which emphasizes the crucial role of thoughtful planning in creating actionable strategy. As I have stated before, coming up with a strategic communication plan is not solely the responsibility of the public information officer, but the PIO plays a crucial role in the plan's development. Of greater importance is when the plan goes into play, how the PIO markets and assists in the plan's execution. Now, I hope I've provided some valuable context. Next week, we have some great guests lined up, and in the coming weeks, we have some phenomenal guest speakers. One way you can help the show grow is leave a positive review on whatever podcasting platform you listen to, or tell a colleague who has not heard the podcast yet. I wanted to also say this podcast is solely funded out of my pocket. If anyone would like to donate, you can do so via the link in the show notes. I never intended the show to make money. I do the podcast out of the love of the profession that we are all in and to assist those who enter this great community that I am part of. Thank you to everyone for comments and support. Until next week, be safe.
We hope you enjoyed this episode. If you would like to contact the show, please email us at thepiopodcast@gmail.com. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast to get notified of the latest episode. If you are listening on a platform that allows reviews, please give us a review. We appreciate any review, good or bad. It helps us improve on each episode. Until next time, be safe.